Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Tracy Bennett. In studio with me are certified financial planners Stephen Lucan and Tony Payne. How's it going, guys?
Good.
We're back.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you,
These
too.
are fun. I'm enjoying sitting here with you, talking financial planning together. I mean, this is fun.
Solving the problems of the world.
Tony and I can talk it all day.
Yeah.
We do talk it all day. So
Excellent. Yeah, exactly.
I love to just sit and listen to you guys riff sometimes. I learn so much about everything.
Well, let's riff.
It's a universe.
It's
Let's
been
riff.
fun.
No
We're doing
shameless
that.
plugs yet. But all right, today we're talking about the 403B and 401k, what you need to know about your retirement plan and how these accounts are different. So let's first explain to people what they are and how they're different.
Well, first of all, they're retirement plans. They're accounts that you can use to save and get ahead. It's a wonderful thing usually offered by your employer. If you're self-employed, maybe you've implemented one over time, but that's the first step. Is it's usually when you're working, it's through an employer. It's something that you can save for retirement in. I'll kind of keep it there and see what you would have.
and they're a form of, you can defer your compensation into these accounts. So you have to determine what type of plan is offered by your employer. And the most standard ones are the 403B and 401k. So your benefits administrator will tell you what you're eligible for, what's available, and you get to defer some of your compensation into these accounts.
And if you're wondering where the letter soup comes from, 457, 403B, 401k, 529 even, there's other numbers that go along with this we're not talking about today, but all of those come from different parts of the tax code. So that's where they abbreviate these kind of things to say, well, the 401k, the 403b. So that's how they get created. That's why we come up with all these numbers and letters to go with it. So these are just written into the tax code, different benefits, different kind of plans that you can use to hopefully get ahead.
Are there certain groups that use certain types of industries that use each account? Or
Great. Yeah, you're already in the weeds here a little bit. I love it. Depending upon if it's a nonprofit, a charity, a school, something like that, you might be looking at a 403B, maybe a hospital even, or hospital system. And if you're working for a private employer or a public company, it might be a 401k.
Okay.
So that's one of the differences. And we can get into the weeds even on other letter plans.
Right.
I think we've got a couple of other podcasts where we break some of those down too, which is could be helpful to our audience. Are they both matching programs?
Again,
Employee match?
the devil's in the details of the type of plan. So you have to ask your employer. They'll give you the information. There'll be a match possibly if for every dollar you put in, you'll get a certain percentage. But it's based on the plan itself and how the plan is written. So you got to ask for the plan documents because there's a lot of different things out there, from loans available possible, taking a loan from the plan, to the type of match, to catch-up contributions, to after-tax contributions. There's all different types of variations there. So it's sort of like buying a car. What kind of features do you want?
Yeah, my brain just exploded.
Yeah, so it's about the features of the
Okay.
plan, right?
All right. So how does somebody know if their employer is matching their contributions? Is that on the paycheck? Where is that just a conversation when they're hired? How do you follow up with that?
Yeah, Stephen, you've said it before, and this thing we're going to reference a ton today, but your benefits handbook and then a plan summary document. So each of the plans, whether it's a 401k, 403b, any of the other letters out there, there's typically a plan summary, and within that document, it'll say what are the rules. And some of those rules will share what the match is, if there is a match. Not all of them even offer them. So I was kind of thinking here as you were talking, going back to the beginning, when you're even evaluating a job or a job offer, yes, there's the top line salary, but are they going to match your 401k? Do they even offer a retirement plan? Maybe there's profit sharing. So those are things that when you're evaluating just at the very beginning, when you're starting, consider those.
Mm-hmm. How do you know what to contribute to that account? How do you get there? Is that, and I guess it's different with every milestone age.
Right.
Too,
It's a savings vehicle though, right? So again, if you need money saved, this is one of the best tools that are out there because one, it could be tax deductible. There's also now a Roth 401k, a Roth 403b feature, which is tax free, but it's after tax dollars. But in general terms, I have yet to encounter anyone that didn't need to save into a 403b or 401k. And even just taking advantage of the tax deduction alone is always usually beneficial. I shouldn't use the word always.
No, yeah, thank you. Yeah, you look at me as you say that. But to that point, though, you think about someone who, you know what, maybe they are independently wealthy. You know, they have real estate or some other things or a family portfolio, something like that. And they're working because they want to work. So the idea of, like Stephen said, take advantage sometimes of the tax benefits, you know, to have someone ask, well, why would I do a 403B if I don't need money later in life? Well, maybe you're going to leave money to heirs, that tax deferred growth. Because when you're using these accounts, and we really haven't talked about that much, money in those accounts grows without taxes on it each year. So if I was saving money in what we call a brokerage account, if I make money and I sell my stock and I owe taxes on that, that eats into how much I have growing for me. But if I'm using this 401k or 403b, well, now that money, when I sell it and I take a gain, I don't pay taxes on that gain right now. So I'm able to have more of my money working for me over time. And that's where that math of tax deferred growth, it really is powerful.
You just triggered a question. Do employees have the option of managing their investments within these retirement plans?
You should be able to, yes. Again, most of the time, yes, right? So you can select what type of investment you want. You can be more aggressive if you're younger, more conservative if you're older, closer to retirement. But you should have the option to manage the investment. And I say should because in the old days, many plans didn't allow for the employees to manage the investments. Here, it was self-invested by the company, the trustee.
And maybe even worse yet, we remember those days back at WorldCom, Enron, others, where they allowed you to have company stock in the 401k, maybe even pushed you to that. So especially diversifying, thinking about things like that. That's where some of these rules come in. Sometimes they're handcuffs. Maybe they'll only let you invest in vanilla kind of things. But that's where these rules normally come from, is some big collapse or people's retirement being at stake.
All right, Tony, let's riff. The new rule with the crypto.
Oh, yeah.
That's dangerous, right?
Dangerous, exciting, dangerous. Those words blend together, right?
Right. But now there's a ruling that passed this year. You could invest in crypto within your 401k, which it's always been there. Actually, it's been there for a few years, but it depends whether
you can do that.
Well, you can. It's allowed. But does the plan offer that opportunity? And now that it's getting promoted more, I'm concerned that it's going to be there because just what Tony said with Enron, or what was the other one you mentioned? WorldCom. A lot of the employees, it was, for lack of a better word, it was greed, right? Where I wanted more money. So let me invest. I'll put all my 401k into Enron stock. It's only going up. And that's what we've seen in the last 5-10 years with Bitcoin and crypto. It's getting popular, and we don't know how vulnerable it is yet. We haven't seen a bear market really with that type of investment, and I'm concerned that people are going to overextend themselves.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine merging crypto with dollars in one program because of the passwords and the proprietary overarching
it's complex
supervision you have to have on your crypto account in the first place.
And that's part of what these rulings, though, are enabling, is perhaps where it felt complex and all the hurdles that used to be there, to be able to say, you know what, just like anything else, I can invest in it. I mean, like we say, there's benefits and there's drawbacks. It's all in how you do it, whether you overdo it or not, or you diversify. But the idea of it's fairly simple if it's in a 401k, and that's the dangerous part maybe for those who aren't aware, didn't do any homework maybe, but know, hey, that's given a higher return recently. You think about something like gold hitting near all-time highs. There's almost 600 years of history of gold prices. I mean, it goes back to England. It's been tracked. You think about crypto, like you were saying, what's that go back to? I mean, you're thinking the early 2000s and some of the early editions. I mean, that's where the history, we haven't seen as long a history. That's all I can say.
Yeah. We don't know the peaks and the valleys yet.
Yeah, that seems risky to me.
Yeah.
Are there fees to join or to open a 403b or?
There are fees within the plan itself. Again, in the plan handbook. So yeah, be aware of what types of fees. They've gone down significantly over the last 20, 30 years, which has been good for the consumer, for the employees. So that's nice to see. But there are fees affiliated with it.
How does that even work? I mean, how does a fee structure work for a retirement plan like that?
I'll say it starts with the plan administrators. Those are the people responsible, usually in the company, usually higher up, maybe appointed or owners. But the idea of they're the ones who select what kind of plan is there. And from there, it goes into, well, what custodian are we using? Who's providing this? We think of some of those big name companies out there that most 401ks are with, and then there's some exceptions. And that's where the fees can vary across all of those. So once you know who's my money with, then you can usually find out better, what am I paying?
Is it usually a percentage or?
Well, it depends, but the reason behind this is, let's say you have a company of 100 employees. You have to file a tax return every year. You have to administer these. You have to be aware of who owns what assets. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that is involved. Who's paying for it? Is the employer covering all of that cost, or is it being shared with the employees? So it depends on the type of plan itself, but there's a lot of behind the scenes paperwork that needs to be filed every year for some of these types of plans.
Not to ever assume the worst, but sometimes when you're looking at a very high fee plan, I can't help but keep seeing it's usually a family member of one of the plan admins. And to be able to bring that up and say that, hey, our options are limited. It seems like our fees are higher. You may not be able to move that mountain, but if there are other people seeing the same things, it's that plan admin's duty to try to get you guys the best plan out there. So they really need to be able to rationalize, why is this, I'll say, terrible plan out there?
Yeah.
That's called a fiduciary in some form, right?
It is. And again, even a bad 401k is still a good tool.
Right. And the thing is, for a very small company, maybe less than 20 employees, it's very expensive. It's not an easy solution to offer the employees. So there's a lot of costs involved. The bigger the company, the more cost per employee goes down, but the smaller companies have a bigger challenge in offering these types of plans.
Gotcha.
It's a challenge for them.
If you've got a Roth IRA or you have another vehicle, another tool, how does the 403b or the 401k fit into the overall retirement plan when you have all these different accounts?
It's one of the tools, right? So you have your tool belt. A Roth IRA will be one tool, 401k, 403b may be another tool, a general savings account. So it's just part of the tool belt for your savings, and you have to see what you're eligible for. Again, part of the process, am I eligible for a Roth IRA, or am I eligible for a deductible IRA or a 401k, 403b? So again, it's all intertwined, and you have to figure out, what can I save to start with. But usually the 401k is centered, or 403b is affiliated with your employer. So that's the easy one. And then everything else is on your own, basically, to look for.
I like your tool belt analogy there, because again, if you think about, because you just wonder, why do I have all these accounts sometimes? There might be 8 or 9 of them between a family sometimes. Well, each of them does something different.
Yeah.
You're not just going to have a hammer for every job. So the ability to say, you know what, in this year in retirement, I'm in a higher tax rate. Maybe I take it from my savings account. Maybe I don't add to my tax bill. Other years, I might be in a really low bracket. Maybe I do a Roth conversion even. We've talked about that in other shows. But, these are all options that flexibility gives you.
Yeah.
I feel like the taxation is an important part of having multiple accounts. Is that really,
Sure.
Is that sort of the focus that you should have on?
Yeah. And that's the benefit of the 403b, 401k. It's a tax deferred, as Tony said, and you're deferring your income into, let's say you make $100,000 and I can defer $20,000 into my 401k. That $20,000 is not taxed. So you're saving, let's say you're saving 20, 30% on that. So you've got an extra $4,000 or $5,000 that you can invest over the next number of years. And that's the power of tax deferred growth. Just Google the efficiency of tax deferred versus taxable. Put it in there and you'll see a chart. And after 20 or 30 years, you see significant growth.
So if you get a windfall, if you come across some extra money, should that be your go-to immediate default to contribute that extra money to that account, or? Well,
you can't,
or doesn't,
right? So let's say you hit the Powerball for $500,000. Okay, so now Tracy has an extra $500,000. My recommendation would be to let's look at maybe you maximize your 401k contribution, and you get less on your paycheck because now you have that extra $500,000, and maybe you live off a little of that, because the power of the tax deductible, tax deferred growth within the 401k or 403b.
But it makes sense if you have a bonus every year rather than spending the bonus to reinvest that into your 401k. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, again, depending upon where you're saving, if you've already maxed out, it might be your money. Hey, if I'm already maxed out and it's really extra, that's the fun part of if you have a plan and you're on track. Sometimes that extra money's yours and we get to say that. Other times, yeah, use that extra money and still save it somewhere else even after you've maxed out. And the other piece we haven't touched on too much is there can even be Roth elements in a 403b or a 401k. So the idea of you can have money that you pay taxes on, and then it goes into that account, and then it can grow tax deferred with tax-free withdrawals. So depending upon where you're at in your situation, you might also have a 403b or 401k that has a Roth piece to it, and you don't always have to select one or the other. So sometimes there's a benefit in having a blend.
Is that something you have to go to the HR person and say, I wanted to go to this part of it?
Yeah. It's
literally you have to peel it apart
correct.
to do that, right?
Correct. And then having a broad knowledge on, okay, how does this work? The other thing we didn't talk about is the catch-up contribution.
You just read my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of ketchup.
Just if you
but
would.
ketchup contributions I am a fan of.
I personally like mustard better, but
Right,
if you would explain what the catch-up contributions are to those of us who don't know.
So once you hit the ripe old age of 50, I'm in that bucket. I can add extra money to IRAs, 401ks, 403b. So if you hit age 50, you have the ability to save more in types of retirement plans. Whether it's an IRA or 401k, 403b. Now, this past year, it's expanded for age 60 to 63. It's called a super catch-up?
We'll call it a
super catch-up contribution where it's even more. Exactly. Very strong. So, yeah, catch-up contributions are an important piece to the retirement puzzle.
How do you know if you're saving enough in these things?
Again, to know, it starts with what do I need? What do I need is usually based upon what am I spending now, and am I going to have more or less expenses? Sometimes the kids might be out of the house, the mortgage might be paid, you might get a raise, in fact. Or, hey, I finally have my time back, I'm going to spend more. So that's where I think it starts.
But you got to be careful because if you put it all into the 401k, 403b, and then you're running up credit card debt because you don't have any money, you're not doing it right. So it's finding a balance on what's an appropriate amount.
Do people front load or back load, I should say, as they get closer to retirement? Does it make sense strategically to start throwing extra money into your retirement accounts like that?
Can't hurt.
No, it wouldn't hurt like you're saying, and that's on the premise that you weren't already maxing it out. Again, if we go back to the beginning, and that's where this usually starts, that first job, that when you're starting a new career, okay, what do I select at the very beginning? Maybe you have that custodian. You're logged in. HR pointed you the right direction. Here, it's through this custodian. Go to this website, put in your info. You're in there. First questions are, how much do you want to put in there out of your paycheck? Where do you want to put it? What type of account? And by then, your eyes might glaze over. You've already Googled a little bit. And now it's, okay, I'm going to guess on this maybe. And that's where we come in. That's where the advice of having a plan, because yes, there might be the tax piece. There might be when I'm going to retire, but then there's also how am I going to invest this? So pulling all those together sometimes is a lot.
And it's hard to give a definitive answer to any question that we're talking about because there's no two financial plans that are the same, right? I've never seen that situation where you say these are identical because we all have different aspirations, different forms of income, but it's like a symphony. You've got to harmonize it, all the different instruments working for you and as part of your financial plan. But there's no two plans that are the same, but every situation poses a question, how should we approach it? And it's specific to the client.
What if you change jobs? Like, what if you have a 401k from your previous employer and you have one that you just opened with your current? Should you leave that other one open or should you merge them, roll them into one?
Go ahead.
Do some analysis. That's the first step. We keep saying that, but there's no universal answers here, whether it's the plan differences, fee differences, just where you're at in your phase of life. Depending upon where you're at, if you've got a lot going on, to have money in a 401k growing and leave it there and consolidate later might not be a bad move.
Right.
So the idea of do you have to do something? First of all, you don't.
You do not. Yeah.
And then the idea of where is it best? Where can I maximize things? Well, then you're doing your research, wondering what options are available, what are the fees to me, what can I do with this?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say you at one point you're going to probably want to consolidate as you're leading up to retirement, because you could have 4 or 5 different old 401ks, old 403bs floating out there. So at some point you're going to want to consolidate. But as Tony said, some of them might have better investment options, lower fee than the other ones. But you can consolidate. It just depends on whether or not you want to and what's best for your situation.
Okay.
And you can really get into some tax maneuvering and benefits to whether it's an in-service distribution, rollovers, things like that, they're very plan specific. We're aware of those. You can bring those up in certain cases, but to bring them up generally, I'd steer away from that.
Okay. Right. As we close, give me one mistake that comes to mind that people often make when they're dealing with their 403 or 401k.
The biggest mistake is not contributing to it. You're at the very least, most employers will provide a minimum matching amount. And I've seen situations where people just ignore it. And I'm like, why are you ignoring this? And I'm like, you just put money. That's free money. Mm-hmm. They're giving you free money. Mm-hmm. Take that free money. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest mistake.
Yeah. A similar answer again, if you're not utilizing it, even if there's not a match, I've heard too many people just kind of joke and say, oh, my retirement plan's to die. Something like that, where it's like, come on, let's be real here. That you're going to continue working, and at some point you're going to want to stop. That's where that 401k or 403b and choosing to save is going to come in for future you.
The other scenario to be cautious of is if, let's say there's a married couple, they both have incomes, one income is significantly higher than the other one. The lower income spouse may not maximize their contribution into the 401k or 403b because they want their paycheck. They want something to live off of, and it's fine. That's if you have separate finances, but it may be more beneficial to maximize it and have the higher income spouse just cut a check every month to say, okay, you're $1,000 now. Here's $1,000 because you're saving on taxes. So again, there's a harmony there, but a lot of times you'll see one spouse, if it's dual incomes, the lower income spouse doesn't use that plan to their advantage as for the couple, for the plan itself.
Okay. Well,
okay.
that's a great stopping point. That's what we do. That's what you do every day. Thanks so much for shedding light on the topic. We hope that it was helpful. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you'll come back and share with your friends.
Boxland Media. Think big.